Finn.ai is a personal banking and personal finance assistant powered by AI. So think Siri or Google Assistant, but built just for banking. We only work with banks and credit unions, and we're helping them move away from transactional banking into building deeper and more personal relationships with their customers, making that interface simpler, more conversational, but also being a proactive assistant that can help them save and budget and plan and understand to improve their financial lives. So when we think about the customer journey, that's moving away from kind of a product-oriented approach more to a for each individual consumer, so personalized to each individual consumer. How can we coach them around financial literacy to improve their financial health? We think there's a huge opportunity in the collaboration piece between fintechs and incumbent banks. We were a consumer company to start with, and based on this opportunity, pivoted essentially to being focused on this enterprise market. So there are a lot of things that banks have that are very challenging for us to do. Get lots of customers is one of them. Deal with regulation and build and understand that kind of core infrastructure. And then that said, there's also a lot of things that we can do that are more challenging for banks, and I think that synergy is very powerful. In our case, we've had a lot of success working with banks, from large banks to small banks. Yeah, big challenges with working with banks is that they are big companies, particularly compared to us. You know, where we work best where there's a lot of cultural alignment, and I think that's really important when you get into these relationships. I would challenge banks to, and I think they are getting better, but challenge banks to think about how they can work better with smaller companies. You know, there's still a lot of requirements around getting into a bank, particularly as you move to production, that are that are a high burden for a company like us. So I think there's still a lot of learning to do, but we see banks really trying to bring companies like us into the fold, and I think those that do a good job of it will ultimately have a competitive advantage out in the market as they bring in an ecosystem of innovation into their that core bit of value that they own. My recommendation to other fintechs in terms of working with banks would be to start small. So bite off chunks that are relatively easy, that are relatively simple. Try to get something into production quickly. Don't boil the ocean. So that sounds reasonable. That's the kind of agile methodology, but it can be easy to try and do everything at once. So start simple, get into production, build from there.